Tonight, imagine standing alone in a Victorian drawing room, not during the warmth of the afternoon tea, but in the cold, gray light of a winter morning. The air inside is still, smelling faintly of coal dust and beeswax, a scent that seems to preserve the silence rather than fill it. You are holding a small, rectangular object in your hand, and while it looks harmless, your stomach tightens as if you are holding a loaded pistol. Outside, the London fog presses against the window pane, a yellow-gray wall that traps you inside with your obligations. You probably wouldn't last long here. The air is too thin, the corset's too tight, and the social pressure heavy enough to crush a modern lung. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and comment your location and local time. Let's see who else is keeping watch in the dark. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Most people imagine a dinner party invitation as a gesture of friendship, a warm summons to break bread and share laughter. But for you, holding this heavy square of cream-colored paper, you know the truth. This is not an offer of hospitality. It is a subpoena. You are being summoned to a trial where the judge is the hostess, the jury is the other guests, and the defendant is your own precarious social standing. The card itself is a weapon of intimidation. It is thick, stiff pasteboard, the kind that could slice skin if handled carelessly. The handwriting is copperplate, terrifyingly precise, the ink black and deeply pressed into the fiber. It tells you that Mr. and Mrs. Ponsonby Smythe request the pleasure of your company 3 weeks from now at 8 o'clock. The phrase "request the pleasure" is the first lie of the evening, and the event hasn't even started yet. There will be no pleasure. There will be judgment. You stare at the date. 3 weeks is the standard warning time for a formal dinner. It is a calculated duration, long enough to ensure you haven't made other plans, but short enough to keep you in a state of low-grade anxiety for the rest of the month. To receive an invitation with less notice, say, a week, would be an insult. It would imply you are a fill-in, a B-list substitution for someone who died or had the good sense to leave town. To receive one with more notice would be presumptuous. 3 weeks is the sweet spot of social tyranny. You place the card on the mantelpiece, next to the ticking clock. The clock is important because the countdown has begun. You have exactly 24 hours to reply. This is not a guideline. It is a law written in the invisible constitution of the upper class. To delay is to admit you are waiting for a better offer, which is a mortal sin. To refuse without a catastrophic excuse, like the death of a parent or a contagious disease, is social suicide. You cannot simply say you don't want to go. In this world, your personal desires are irrelevant. You are a brick in the wall of society, and if the wall needs you to sit in a chair and eat lukewarm soup to maintain its structural integrity, you will do so. You sit down at your writing desk to compose the acceptance. You must use your own stationery, which must be of equal or greater quality to the invitation. A flimsy reply indicates a flimsy character. You dip your pen into the inkwell. You must write in the third person. Mr., your name, has much pleasure in accepting. There is a grim irony in writing, has much pleasure, while your hand trembles slightly with dread. It is the first of hundreds of small perjuries you will commit in the name of etiquette. You blot the ink carefully. A smudge would be fatal. Once the acceptance is sent via a servant, never the post, which is too common, you are locked in. You belong to the hostess now. You are part of her inventory, somewhere between the silver candelabra and the roast mutton. She has calculated the table plan, balancing the personalities, the ages, and the ranks. You have been selected not because you are entertaining, but because you fill a specific geometric void at the table. You are a male, you are unmarried, and you own a dress coat. This makes you a useful man. Historians still argue whether the Victorians actually enjoyed these gatherings, or if the entire era was just a collective exercise in enduring boredom for the sake of appearances. As the days tick by, the weight of the upcoming evening grows. You start to mentally rehearse your conversational topics. You cannot talk about politics, religion, or money. You certainly cannot talk about your own problems. You must be agreeable. To be agreeable is to be a mirror, reflecting back a slightly more interesting version of whoever you are speaking to. You worry about the guest list. Who else will be there? If you are lucky, it will be people you don't know, offering the safety of anonymity. If you are unlucky, it will be your creditors, or worse, your relatives. The preparation isn't just mental, it is financial. You look at your dress clothes. The black wool tailcoat, the trousers, the white waistcoat. They smell faintly of lavender and old mothballs. Are they still in fashion? The cut of a lapel can change in a season, and wearing last year's tails is like wearing a sign that reads, "I am failing." You might need to visit your tailor, incurring a debt you cannot pay, to attend a dinner you do not want to eat. You realize that the dinner party is the great equalizer of misery. The wealthy host is stressed about the food being perfect. The poor guest is stressed about his clothes being adequate. Everyone is miserable, but they are miserable in very expensive ways. There is a specific kind of dread reserved for the pairing. You know that you will be assigned a female partner to escort into the dining room. You will be shackled to this person for at least 2 hours. If she is dull, you are trapped. If she is deaf, you will shout until your throat is raw. If she is intelligent, she will likely despise you. It is a lottery where the prize is merely not being humiliated. You look at the invitation again. It sits on the mantel like a threat. The cream paper seems to glow in the dim gaslight. It represents the heavy, suffocating blanket of civilization. You are not free. You are civilized. And the price of civilization is eating boiled fish with people you loathe. The weather outside worsens. The fog turns to a cold, sleeting rain. You hope it clears by the night of the party. Arriving with mud on your boots is a disaster. You would have to face the butler, that silent, judging sentinel, while looking like you walked from the gutter. You think about the food. It will be heavy. It will be French or a bad imitation of it. It will be served in 12 to 14 courses. You are expected to eat, but not too much. You are expected to drink, but not get drunk. You are expected to be witty, but not loud. You are walking. The night of the dinner has arrived. The 3-week reprieve is over, and the clock on the mantelpiece is no longer counting down days, but minutes. It is time to transform yourself from a biological human being into a piece of social furniture. The process begins not with luxury, but with shivering. The bedroom is drafty, the coal fire having burned down to a sullen orange glow that offers no warmth beyond the hearthrug. You strip down to your skin, standing pale and vulnerable in the gaslight. This is the last moment of freedom your body will know for the next 6 hours. You catch a glimpse of yourself in the cheval mirror-slumped shoulders, a slight paunch, the natural curvature of a living thing. All of that must be corrected. You step into your undergarments. They are wool or flannel, itching slightly against the skin. But the true torture begins with the shirt. It is a specific kind of shirt, reserved solely for evening wear. The front panel, the plastron, or bib, has been boiled, starched, and ironed until it possesses the structural integrity of plywood. It does not drape, it snaps. When you pick it up, it holds its shape, a hollow, white ghost of a torso, waiting for you to climb inside. You slide your arms in. The fabric is cold and unyielding. The cuffs are cemented into perfect circles that will chafe your wrists raw by the time the fish course is served. But the shirt front is the main adversary. It sits against your chest like a shield. It is designed to remain perfectly flat, regardless of how you move. If you slouch, it will dig into your stomach. If you lean forward, it will rise up and attempt to strangle you. You are not dressing for comfort. You are dressing to prove you can afford not to move. Now comes the hardware. A Victorian gentleman does not use buttons for his evening shirt. Buttons are too common, too easy. You must use studs. These are small, distinct pieces of jewelry, usually gold or mother of pearl, that must be forced through the buttonholes. However, the laundress has done her job too well. The starch has glued the buttonholes shut. You stand there, half naked and freezing, your fingers fumbling with a tiny gold stud, trying to force it through 4 layers of petrified linen. Your fingernail slips and tears against the rough edge of the starch. You curse softly. A drop of blood would be catastrophic. A blood stain on a white shirt front is a social death sentence. It implies you are human, and bleeding is a very vulgar activity. You manage to secure the studs. The shirt is now locked onto your body. It creaks when you breathe. Next is the collar. This is the defining feature of the age. It is a separate piece of stiffened fabric, tall and sharp. It is attached to the shirt with another set of studs, front and back. The points of the collar stand high, grazing your jawline. This is the vadermyrder, the father killer, so named because a man wearing one could theoretically cut his own father's throat if he embraced him too vigorously. You fasten the front stud. The collar clamps around your neck. Immediately, your posture changes. You cannot look down. You cannot turn your head more than 10 degrees to the left or right without the entire shirt assembly twisting with you. You are forced to look down your nose at the world, not because you are arrogant, but because the architecture of your neckwear leaves you no choice. Historians still argue whether the stiffness of Victorian morals was a cause or a consequence of their collars. It is difficult to be loose and liberal when your carotid artery is being slowly compressed by a ring of cardboard. You tie the cravat. It must be white. It must be a bow. And it must be perfect. You have to tie it by feel, because looking down is now impossible. You fumble with the silk. It ends up crooked. You untie it. The silk wrinkles. You discard it. You take a fresh tie. A gentleman might ruin 3 ties before achieving the perfect waterfall or butterfly knot. This is conspicuous consumption, wasting expensive silk in the privacy of your own dressing room to achieve a look of effortless perfection. With the neck secured, you move to the trousers. They are black, high-waisted, and made of heavy doeskin or wool. You pull them up. They do not have belt loops. Belts are for laborers. You attach braces suspenders that hoist the trousers up to your ribs. The waistband is tight, reminding you that you will be eating a 12-course meal in a garment that allows for zero expansion. You step into your boots. They are patent leather, shining with a high-gloss varnish that smells of turpentine. They are narrow. Fashion dictates a slender foot, regardless of the actual width of your bones. Your toes are crushed together. You will be standing on these feet for hours during a pre-dinner reception. The pain is immediate, a dull throb that will sharpen into a needle-like agony by the time the roast beef arrives. Finally, the coat. The swallowtail. It is black wool, cut away at the front and falling into 2 long tails at the back. You slip it on. It is heavy. The shoulders are padded to give you a silhouette of masculine power. The waist is nipped in. If you are carrying a few extra pounds, you might wear a corset beneath the shirt, a stay belt to cinch your waist. Yes, men wore them too, though they rarely spoke of it. The vanity of the age is equal opportunity. You button the white waistcoat. It covers the transition between the trousers and the shirt. Everything is layered. You are an onion made of wool and linen. You stand back and look in the mirror. The transformation is complete. The human being is gone. In its place is a black and white icon. You look like a penguin. You look like a waiter. You look like a very elegant undertaker, which is appropriate, given you are about to bury your evening. The sensation is one of containment. You are held in. The shirt pushes against your chest. The collar pushes against your jaw. The boots push against your toes. You are being squeezed from all sides. This physical restriction creates a psychological state. You feel rigid. You feel controlled. You cannot laugh belly laughs in this outfit. The studs would pop. You cannot gesture wildly. The seams would split. You are engineered for stillness and restraint. You check your pockets. A clean white handkerchief, for show, not for blowing your nose. A pocket watch, though looking at it is rude. A pair of white kid gloves. You pull the gloves on. They are tight, molding to your fingers like a second skin. They are pristine, snowy white. They will remain white for exactly 10 minutes. After that, they will pick up the soot of the London air, the grease of the carriage door, the oil of the human hand. But for now, they are perfect. They render your hands useless. You cannot grip anything slippery. You have lost your sense of touch. You pick up your top hat. It is a cylinder of silk plush, brushed to a mirror shine. It adds 6 inches to your height. The carriage lurched to a halt. The sudden cessation of movement throws you slightly forward, your stiff shirt front biting into your ribs. You hear the horses snort in the damp air, their breath plumes visible in the yellow cone of the street lamp. You have arrived. The transition from the sanctuary of the carriage to the judgment of the house is violent. You open the door and step down into the murky soup of a London evening. The pavement is slick with a mixture of rain, coal dust, and horse manure, a substance known politely as mud, but which is actually a complex biohazard. You navigate the 3 feet of sidewalk with the concentration of a tightrope walker, terrified that a splash of filth will mar the pristine gloss of your patent leather boots. You reach the front door. It is massive, painted a black so deep it seems to absorb the night, polished to a mirror shine that reflects your own anxious face. The brass knocker is heavy, shaped like a lion's head or a clenched fist. You do not use it. You reach for the bell pull. You give it a tug. Somewhere deep in the bowels of the house, a bell jangles. It is a lonely, mechanical sound. It is the sound of you asking for permission to exist. You wait. This is the threshold pause. It is designed to be just long enough for you to doubt yourself. Did you pull it hard enough? Too hard? Is your tie straight? You stand in the cold, a supplicant at the temple of etiquette. Then the door opens. It does not swing wide in a welcoming embrace. It opens precisely enough to admit you, controlled by an invisible hand. You step from the freezing drizzle into a lull of heat and light. The hallway is a sensory assault. After the charcoal gray of the street, the interior is blinding. The gas chandeliers hiss softly overhead, burning with a fierce, unwavering yellow glare. The air is thick, stripped of oxygen, and replaced with the sense of beeswax polish, hothouse flowers, and the sulphurous taint of coal gas. And there, standing like a sentinel at the gates of the underworld, is the butler. He is an imposing figure. He is not wearing livery, that is for the footmen, the lower-tier biological decor who hover in the background. The butler is dressed in black evening wear that is disturbingly similar to your own, only his fits better. He stands with a posture that defies anatomy, his spine a plumb line of moral superiority. He looks at you. It is not a look of recognition, nor of welcome. It is an appraisal. It is a biological scan performed by a man who has spent 40 years assessing the net worth of gentlemen by the cut of their lapels. In the span of 2 seconds, he has catalogued your existence. He has noted the slight scuff on your toe, -5 points, the quality of your silk hat, acceptable, and the faint air of desperation that clings to you like the fog, predictable. He knows your income better than your banker does. He knows which clubs you belong to, and more importantly, which ones blackballed you. He takes your hat. He handles it with a practiced indifference, as if he is doing the silk a favor by touching it. He takes your gloves. Then, the heavy wool cloak. This divestment is a stripping away of your armor. Out on the street, wrapped in wool and shadow, you were a mystery. Here, under the merciless gaslight, you are exposed. You feel thinner, paler, and less significant without the bulk of your coat. You are just a man in a starched carapace, standing on a checkerboard marble floor. The butler does not speak. He does not need to. His silence is a loud, articulate commentary on your social standing. If you were a duke, there might be a subtle inclination of the head, a microscopic softening of the eyes. For you, there is only the blank stare of a man who is legally bound to serve you, but privately convinced of your irrelevance. Historians still argue whether the legendary stoicism of the Victorian butler was a result of intense professional training, or simply the dissociative state required to endure the crushing boredom of opening a door 500 times a night. You glance at the footmen. They are younger, taller, and matched for height and calf circumference like prize horses. They wear powdered wigs and silk stockings. They are the peacocks of the hallway, decorative and mute. They stare past you, focusing on a point on the wallpaper, reducing you to a blur of movement in their peripheral vision. You are now in a holding pattern. You cannot simply bolt for the drawing room. You must check yourself in the hallway mirror. This is a trap. The mirror is usually an ornate, gilded antique with glass that is slightly warped by age. You look into it and see a distorted, pale stranger with a cravat that suddenly looks crooked. You resist the urge to touch it. Fidgeting is a sign of a weak mind. The hallway itself is designed to intimidate. The walls are hung with oil paintings, ancestors of the host, or bought ancestors if the money is new. They look down at you with dark, varnished eyes. There is a suit of armor in the corner, holding a halberd. It is a reminder that this class used to kill people with metal sticks. Now they just do it with silence and soup spoons. The butler clears his throat. It is a dry, dusty sound, like shuffling papers. He is ready to process you. Name, sir? He asks, though he likely knows it. He just wants to hear you say it, to test the steadiness of your voice. You give your name. It sounds thin in the cavernous hall. He turns and begins the ascent. You follow him. The staircase is wide, carpeted in a deep blood-red plush that swallows the sound of your footsteps. You are ascending to the judgment seat. The banister is polished mahogany, smooth and cold under your hand. You are careful not to lean on it. The polish might transfer to your white glove, a disaster that would mark you as a clumsy oaf for the rest of the evening. As you climb, the heat rises. Heat rises, and so does the noise. You can hear the hum of conversation from the landing above, a low, polite murmur that sounds like a hive of bees that have taken sedatives. The butler reaches the top of the stairs. He stands by the double doors of the drawing room. He pauses, his hand on the brass handle. This is the final checkpoint. Once that door opens, there is no going back. You cannot turn around and claim you forgot your stove was on. You are committed. You take a breath, but the starch of your shirt stops it halfway. You settle for a shallow gasp. The butler opens the door. The light from inside is even brighter. The drawing room has been a holding cell for the last 30 minutes, a purgatory of small talk and stiff postures. But now the air changes. The butler reappears in the doorway, grave and momentous, like a prophet announcing a famine. He clears his throat, a sound that cuts through the murmur of conversation like a scythe. Dinner is served, he intones. It is a simple phrase, but in this context, it is a military command. The casual milling about ceases instantly. The room snaps to attention. The procession is about to begin. This is not a casual stroll to the table. It is a highly choreographed ritual, a 2x2 march that rivals a coronation for complexity and exceeds it in potential for embarrassment. A hostess, the general of this campaign, approaches you with a piece of paper in her hand, or more frighteningly, with the list memorized in her steel-trap mind. She steers you toward a corner of the room where a young woman is standing. She is studying her fan with the intensity of an archaeologist examining a fossil. "Mister, your name," the hostess says, her voice brooking no argument. "May I have the pleasure of presenting you to Miss Featherstone? You will take Miss Featherstone in? Take her in." The phrasing is peculiar. It suggests you are about to escort a prisoner to a cell, or perhaps carry a piece of livestock to market. You bow. It is a rigid mechanical hinge of the waist, governed by the geometry of your starched shirt front. Miss Featherstone curtsies, a rustle of silk and a dip of the head. You do not know Miss Featherstone. You have never seen her before. But for the next 2 hours, she is your legal responsibility. You are bound to her by the laws of hospitality. You offer your arm. You crook your right elbow at a precise 90-degree angle, creating a bracket for her to latch onto. She places her hand on your forearm. The contact is jarring. Through the layers of her white kid glove and the heavy wool of your sleeve, you feel a presence, a weight. It is an intimacy that feels unearned. In a society where touching is strictly regulated, this sudden linking of bodies with a total stranger feels illicit, yet mandatory. You wait. You cannot just walk out. There is an order of precedence to be observed. This is the Victorian obsession with hierarchy made manifest. The host goes first, escorting the highest-ranking female guest, usually a duchess, or the wife of the most important creditor. Then the next highest rank, and the next. You watch them file out. It is a slow, solemn shuffle. The couples are locked together, moving in sync. It looks less like a dinner party, and more like the loading of Noah's Ark, if the animals were depressed and wearing diamonds. You calculate your position in the line. You are somewhere in the middle back. You are the mediocre middle. You are ahead of the curate, but behind the barrister. This is your social worth expressed in linear feet. Finally, it is your turn. You step forward. Miss Featherstone moves with you. You are now a single unit, a 6-legged organism, counting the train of her dress. You exit the drawing room and face the stairs. The descent to the dining room is the most perilous physical challenge of the evening. The staircase is likely narrow, designed for architectural elegance rather than traffic flow. Miss Featherstone is wearing a crinoline or a bustle, depending on the exact year of your misery. In either case, she is surrounded by a cage of steel and whalebone that expands her circumference to 4 feet. The geometry of the situation is impossible. The stairs are 4 feet wide. She is 4 feet wide. You are 2 feet wide. You are forced to flatten yourself against the banister. You are not walking next to her. You are clinging to the periphery of her existence. Her skirt brushes against your legs, a relentless rustling tide of silk taffeta. It hisses as it moves, a sound like dry leaves skittering on pavement. You must synchronize your steps. If you step when she pauses, you will trip on her hem. If you tear the hem, you might as well throw yourself over the railing and end it all. The social fallout of ripping a lady's dress on the stairs would haunt your descendants for 3 generations. So you watch her feet, or rather, you watch the way the fabric twitches at the bottom, guessing where her feet might be. Step, pause, step, pause. It is a funeral march. The silence on the stairs is heavy. Conversation is impossible here. You are concentrating too hard on not dying. You stare at the back of the neck of the man in front of you. You see the sweat glistening on his hairline. You see the white dust of powder on the woman's shoulders ahead. You are all cattle in a chute, moving toward the slaughterhouse of the dining room. Historians still argue whether the strict order of precedence was a way to maintain social stability, or simply a mathematical formula designed to make 90% of the guests feel inferior to the other 10%. As you descend, the temperature changes again. The heat from the dining room rises to meet you, a scent of roasted meat, hot wax, and soup. It mingles with the perfume of Miss Featherstone. She smells of rosewater and something chemical, perhaps the arsenic used in the green dye of her ribbons. You glance at her profile. She is looking straight ahead, her expression fixed in a mask of polite vacuity. She is enduring this just as you are. She knows that if she trips, she becomes a pariah. She is gripping your arm tightly, her fingers digging in slightly. It is not affection, it is vertigo. Steep stairs, you venture, a dazzling display of wit. Indeed, she replies. Her voice is flat. She has saved you the effort of a conversation. You are grateful. The procession reaches the hallway below. The line compresses as the couples wait to enter the dining room. You are now standing in a crush of bodies. The smell of wool and starch is overpowering. You can feel the body heat of the couple behind you radiating against your back. You are trapped in a velvet vice. This is the reality of high society. It is not a free-flowing exchange of ideas. It is a rigid, pressurized containment system. You are literally linked to another person, unable to leave, unable to speed up, unable to slow down. You are a cog in the machine. You realize with a bleak sort of humor that this procession is a microcosm of Victorian life. You are paired off based on rank. You march in lockstep. You navigate dangerous obstacles without looking down, and you pretend to be enjoying it while secretly terrified of putting a foot wrong. The couple ahead of you crosses the threshold. Now, the dining room is visible. It is a cave of wonders and terrors. The table is a long, white expanse, stretching away into the distance like a snowfield. It is glittering with silver and crystal. It looks beautiful. It looks expensive. It looks like an operating theater. The butler stands at the door, announcing the guests again, though why he needs to announce people who have been in the house for an hour is a mystery of etiquette. It is simply another layer of formality, another reminder that you are on stage. You guide Miss Featherstone into the room. You have to navigate the transition from the carpet to the rug, ensuring her train doesn't snag. You are a tugboat guiding an ocean liner into port. You scan the table for your name card. This is the final test of the procession. You must find your seat without wandering aimlessly like a lost child. The hostess has hidden the cards and napkins, folded into complex shapes, swans, bishop's mitres, artichokes. You have to squint at the linen origami to read the copperplate script. Ah, you say, spotting it? Here we are. You pull out Miss Featherstone's chair. This is a dangerous maneuver. The chair is heavy mahogany. Her dress is voluminous. You have to slide the chair in at the exact moment she sits, scooping her skirts forward without touching her legs. It is a physics problem involving velocity, mass, and friction. She sits. A puff of air escapes the cushion. You slide the chair in. She is docked. You walk around to your side of the table. You sit. The physical relief of sitting is instantly replaced by the psychological weight of the table setting. You are now locked in place. To your left is Miss Featherstone. To your right is another stranger. In front of you is a fortress of cutlery. The procession is over. The march is done. You have survived the stairs. But as you look at the soup spoon, a heavy silver shovel that reflects your distorted face, you realize the true ordeal is just beginning. You are no longer moving. You are a captive audience to your own dinner. You are seated. The physical exertion of the stairs is over, but now you face a static challenge that is, in many ways, more terrifying. You are staring at the tablecloth. It is a blinding expanse of white damask, starched to the consistency of sheet metal and ironed until it shines. It is not merely a covering for the mahogany. It is a canvas of moral purity. It is spotless, snow-white, and unforgiving. You realize with a sinking heart that this cloth is a trap. Any drop of red wine, any splash of brown gravy, any wayward crumb of bread will stand out against this whiteness like a bloodstain on a wedding dress. The tablecloth is waiting for you to fail, but the cloth is merely the background. The true enemy lies in the foreground. In front of you sits a fortress of silver. The Victorian dinner table is not set for a meal. It is set for a surgical procedure. The number of utensils flanking your plate is aggressive. There are forks to your left, knives and spoons to your right, and a separate reserve battalion of dessert, implements lying in ambush at the top. You count them. 3 forks, 3 knives, a soup spoon, a fish knife, a peculiar trowel-shaped instrument, a pair of nutcrackers, a marrow scoop. To the uninitiated, this looks like luxury. To you, it is a minefield. Each utensil corresponds to a specific course, and using them out of order is not simply a mistake. It is a declaration of humble origins. If you pick up the fish fork to eat the salad, you might as well stand up and announce that your father worked in a coal mine. The golden rule drilled into you by nannies and etiquette books is work from the outside in. It sounds simple. The first course uses the outermost tools, and you work your way toward the plate as the night progresses. But the Victorians, in their infinite capacity for cruelty, have introduced variables. What about the oyster fork? It is often placed on the right, defying the fork-left hegemony. What about the sorbet spoon? Does it count as a course? Or a palate cleanser? What if the footman forgets to remove the used cutlery, and you lose track of where you are in the sequence? You stare at the fish knife. It is a relatively new invention, made of silver, because the old steel knives reacted with the lemon juice and fish oils, leaving a metallic taste. But it looks less like a knife and more like a tool for spackling a wall. You touch it tentatively. It is cold. Historians still argue whether the proliferation of highly specific silverware asparagus, tongs, sardine, forks, scrape, shears was driven by genuine utility, or if it was an arms race designed solely to bewilder the nouveau rich who are trying to buy their way into society. You suspect it is the latter. The aristocracy invented the mango fork just to watch the merchant class panic. Then there is the glassware. To your right, a cluster of crystal stems rises like a glass forest. There is a tumbler for water, which you will likely ignore, as water is for horses and the poor. There is a flute for champagne, a smaller glass for sherry, a green-tinted glass for hock, German white wine, a large globe for claret, a V-shaped glass for port. This is a timeline of your future intoxication. The host intends to ply you with 5 different types of alcohol over the next 3 hours. By the time you reach the port, the room will be spinning, but the etiquette demands you remain perfectly upright and lucid. You are expected to poison yourself while maintaining the balance of a gymnast. You look at the centerpiece. It is a massive silver epergne, a tiered structure of bowls and vases overflowing with hothouse flowers, grapes, and ferns. It sits directly in the center of the table, effectively blocking your view of the person sitting opposite you. This is actually a mercy. It means you don't have to make eye contact with the colonel across the table, who is already looking red-faced and argumentative. The epergne is a silver barricade, protecting you from the need to acknowledge half the room. However, the flowers are pungent. The scent of lily mixes with the smell of hot wax from the candelabra. The table is crowded. There is barely room for your elbows. In fact, elbows off the table is not just a rule for children. It is a physical necessity. If you put your elbows down, you will knock over a salt cellar or stab your neighbor with a bread knife. You are confined to a rectangular airspace of about 18 inches. This is your territory. You must defend it. You pick up your napkin. It is a large square of linen, folded into a complex shape, perhaps a bishop's mitre. You unfold it. It is stiff, like cardboard. You place it across your lap. It is slippery. You spend the next minute terrified. It will slide off your slick trousers and onto the floor. If it falls, you cannot dive under the table to retrieve it. That would be undignified. You would have to summon a footman and ask for another, admitting to the entire room that you are incapable of holding on to a piece of cloth. The table setting reflects the shift in dining style that conquered the 19th century. Service à la Russe, service in the Russian style. In the old days, they used service à la Francaise, where all the food was put on the table and once in big bowls, and you grabbed what you wanted. It was chaotic, but at least you could see the food. Now, under the Russian system, the table is bare of food. The food is plated by servants at the sideboard and brought to you. You have no control. You don't know how big the portion will be. You don't know what it is until it is under your nose. The table is a stage for the hardware, not the meal. You run your thumb over the edge of the table. You notice that the tablecloth hangs exactly halfway to the floor. The footman likely used a ruler to measure the distance between the edge of the table and the back of your chair. The precision is military. You feel a sense of imposter syndrome washing over you. Do you belong here, amidst this glittering arsenal? You look at your reflection in the bowl of a spoon. Your face is distorted, stretched wide and comical. The room is quieting down. The rustle of dresses and the scraping of chairs has ceased. The guests are settled. The fortress is manned. You look at the empty plate in front of you. It is a charger, a decorative plate that will never be eaten off. It acts as a placemat for the real plates that will come and go. It is a placeholder for your hunger. You glance at Miss Featherstone. She is inspecting her own array of forks with a critical eye. She knows the code. She was probably trained in the nursery with a wooden spoon and a diagram. She looks comfortable. You do not. You casually move your hand to cover the oyster fork, just in case you made a mistake about its location. The air is heavy with expectation. The fortress is locked down. The siege is about to begin. And the only weapon you have is a spoon that is slightly too large for your mouth. The soup arrives not as a meal, but as an accusation. Under the old system, a massive tureen would have been placed on the table, a steaming cauldron of hospitality from which the host would ladle out portions. But you are dining à la Russe. The food is portioned by the servants at the sideboard, out of your sight. You have no say in the quantity. You have no warning of the temperature. A footman appears at your left shoulder. He does not speak. He merely intrudes into your peripheral vision like a ghost. A hand in a white glove slides a porcelain bowl onto the charger plate in front of you. The movement is silent, practiced, and unnerving. You look down. It is a shallow, wide-rimmed bowl containing a liquid that is essentially transparent. This is consommé la royale, or perhaps a clear turtle soup. It looks less like food and more like the water a painter uses to rinse his brushes. It is a pale, amber fluid with a few geometric shapes of carrot or custard floating in it, looking like shipwreck survivors in a calm sea. You can feel the heat radiating from it. The kitchen is in the basement, a considerable distance away. To ensure the soup arrives hot, the cook has superheated it to a temperature usually reserved for smelting ore. Now, the room falls into a profound, terrifying silence. This is the soup lull. The guests have been seated, the napkins have been unfolded, and the initial pleasantries have been exhausted. Now, everyone must engage in the same difficult mechanical task simultaneously. Conversation dies because concentration is required. You pick up your soup spoon. It is the large, round-bowled instrument you identified earlier. It feels heavy in your hand, a silver shovel. You know the rule. It has been beaten into you since the nursery. You must spoon the soup away from you. This is a movement that defies logic. If you want to bring something to your mouth, the natural instinct is to scoop it toward you. But in the twisted physics of Victorian etiquette, scooping toward yourself is considered an act of aggression, a display of peasant greed, implying you are desperate to get the food into your gullet. So you push the spoon outward, navigating the treacherous amber tide toward the center of the table. You are effectively rowing a boat away from the shore of your hunger. You lift the spoon. It is full of scalding liquid. Now comes the journey. The distance from the bowl to your mouth is perhaps 12 inches. In that 12 inches, disaster awaits. You cannot lower your head to meet the spoon. To hunch over your food is to admit that you are an animal. You must maintain an upright posture, your spine touching the back of the chair, and bring the liquid to your lips. Your hand trembles slightly. A ripple moves across the surface of the consomme. If you spill, the liquid will land on your starched shirt front. The starch will lose its integrity instantly, dissolving into a soggy, transparent mess. You will spend the rest of the evening looking like a lactating wet nurse. You reach your mouth. You do not put the spoon in your mouth. That would be vulgar. You sip from the side of the spoon. Sip. It is silent. Good. But it is hot. It is agonizingly hot. The liquid sears your lip and floods your mouth with a temperature that kills nerve endings on contact. You want to gasp. You want to open your mouth and fan it with your hand. You want to spit it back out. You do none of these things. You are a gentleman. You swallow the magma. You feel it slide down your throat, burning a trail of regret all the way to your stomach. Your eyes water. You blink rapidly, suppressing a cough. Historians still argue whether the extreme temperature of Victorian soup was a culinary preference or simply a byproduct of the servants running up the stairs as fast as possible to avoid a beating from the cook. You glance around the table. Everyone else is engaged in the same silent torture. It is a room full of people burning their mouths in unison, united by a fear of making a sound. The silence amplifies everything. The clink of a spoon against the porcelain sounds like a church bell. The rustle of a napkin sounds like a gunshot. But the sound you fear most is the slurp. The slurp is the social death knell. It is the sound of the nursery, the sound of the gutter. In this acoustic environment, where the heavy velvet curtains dampen the background noise, a slurp would echo. It would be a wet, sucking sound that would cause the hostess to freeze and Miss Featherstone to shudder in her crinoline. You eat with extreme caution. You are a bomb disposal expert diffusing a bowl of broth. There is also the issue of facial hair. You, like most men in the room, likely possess a mustache, perhaps even a full set of mutton chops or a walrus. This is a biological filter. The soup wants to stay in your mustache. If you are not careful, you will finish the course with droplets of grease hanging from your upper lip like amber jewels. You cannot wipe your mouth constantly. That draws attention. You have to use your upper lip as a squeegee against the spoon, a delicate maneuver that requires fine motor control you currently lack due to the terror. You lower the spoon again. Push away. Lift. Sip. Burn. Swallow. Repeat. It is boring. The soup has almost no flavor. It tastes of salt and boiled bones. It is not meant to nourish you. It is meant to prepare your stomach for the onslaught of the next 11 courses. It is a warm-up lap. You notice a small piece of bread on your side plate. A roll. It is crusty and dry. The soup bowl has barely been whisked away when the next challenge descends. You are serving yourself this time, or rather, you are transferring a portion from the communal dish to your plate while the servant holds it steady. You use the serving spoon and fork to lift a piece of fish. The fish has been obliterated under a thick, opaque blanket of sauce. It is a creamy, yellowish-white emulsion hollandaise, or a rich bechamel loaded with cream and butter. It coats the fish so thoroughly that the topography of the fillet is lost. You manage to land the specimen on your plate without trailing a string of sauce across the tablecloth. The footman vanishes. Now you must pick up the tools. This is the moment for the fish knife. It is a peculiar instrument made entirely of silver. It has a broad, flat blade that resembles a bricklayer's trowel, and a dull edge that couldn't cut warm butter, let alone skin. The matching fork is four-tined and equally decorative. You begin the dissection. Because the knife is dull, you cannot slice. You must flake. You push the silver trowel into the white mass, hoping to separate the flesh from the skeleton that you pray has been removed in the kitchen. The sauce is the enemy here. It hides everything. It is a camouflage pattern designed by a chef who hates you. You cannot see the bones. You can only feel for them. You take a bite. The sauce is rich, cloying, and heavy. It coats the roof of your mouth with a layer of fat that instantly starts to congeal. It tastes of cream, sherry, and the vague, salty memory of the ocean. Then you feel it. A sharp, distinct needle pricks the soft tissue of your tongue. A bone. Your heart stops. The conversation around you fades into a dull buzz. You are facing the ultimate Victorian dilemma. You have a foreign object in your mouth, and you are socially forbidden from removing it. In a sane world, you would spit it out. In a slightly less polite world, you would reach in with your fingers and pull it out. In this world, both of those actions are grounds for exile. Touching the inside of your mouth at the dinner table is considered as vulgar as scratching your armpit. It implies that you are a biological entity with teeth and saliva, rather than a refined spirit who absorbs nutrients through osmosis. You have 3 options, and they are all terrible. Option 1, you swallow it. This is the Spartan approach. You risk perforating your esophagus or choking to death. The fish plates have vanished, whisked away by the silent battalion of footmen. You are enjoying a brief moment of respite, staring at the white void of the tablecloth, perhaps contemplating the scratch on your gum. But in the Victorian dining room, peace is merely the interval between ordeals. At the head of the table, the hostess moves. It is a subtle gesture, yet it commands more authority than a royal decree. She turns her head. For the first 30 minutes of the meal, she has been exclusively engaged with the gentleman on her left, the guest of honor. Now, with the arrival of the entrees, she pivots smoothly, deliberately, to the gentleman on her right. This is the turn. It is the signal for a social domino effect. As the hostess turns, the man she was speaking to must turn to his left. The woman he turns to must turn to her left, and so on down the line. The wave of obligation ripples down the mahogany expanse. It reaches you. You are legally bound to abandon Miss Featherstone. It doesn't matter if you are in the middle of a sentence. It doesn't matter if you had actually managed to find a topic of mutual interest, like the dampness of the season. The laws of etiquette are absolute. To continue speaking to the person on your left, once the hostess has turned, is a snub to the person on your right. It suggests you find them repulsive. Even if you do find them repulsive, you are forbidden from showing it. You pivot. Your starched collar digs into your jugular vein as you rotate your neck 45 degrees to the right. The shirt front resists the torque, twisting against your ribs. You are now face to face with your new reality. Her name is Mrs. Blenkinsop. She is a woman of indeterminate age, constructed primarily of purple silk and judgment. She is wearing a turban of fashion choice that signals she has given up on attracting men and has pivoted entirely to terrifying them. She is wearing a significant amount of jewelry, most of it appearing to be mourning jewelry. Jet beads, black onyx, perhaps a brooch containing the hair of a deceased relative. She looks at you. Her expression suggests she has smelled something unpleasant, and she suspects it is your biography. "Mr. Your name," she says. It is not a greeting. It is an accusation. "Mrs. Blenkinsop," you reply, inclining your head as much as your neckwear allows. Now you must speak. Silence is the enemy. In this era, silence at the dinner table is not restful. It is a failure of breeding. You are expected to sing for your supper, paying for your food with a continuous stream of agreeable, non-controversial noise. But what do you say to Mrs. Blenkinsop? You cannot discuss politics, too divisive. You cannot discuss religion, too personal. You cannot discuss the food, too vulgar. You cannot discuss money, too middle class. You are left with the safe topics, which have been grazed to the root by generations of bored diners. "The fog was quite thick this evening," you venture. "It is London," she replies. She dissects this statement, finds it lacking in nutritional value, and discards it. It is always thick in November. The conversation has died on the operating table. You have to revive it. I understand your nephew has returned from India. You lie. You don't know if she has a nephew. Everyone has a nephew in India. It is a statistical probability. He has, she says. With a liver complaint, you are now trapped in a discussion about colonial bile ducts. As you endure this, the entrees arrive. These are the made dishes' complex architectural creations that bridge the gap between the fish and the roast. Tonight, it is likely sweetbreads à la financière, or perhaps volume au vents. The footman presents the platter. You are distracted by Mrs. Blenkinsop's description of quinine treatments. You fumble with the serving spoon. You are trying to transfer a delicate puff pastry shell filled with creamed chicken and mushrooms onto your plate while looking to your right. You are eating blind. This is the physical tyranny of the turn. You must face your partner, but your food is in front of you. To eat, you must shovel food into your mouth while keeping your eyes locked on Mrs. Blenkinsop's turban. If you look at your plate too long, you are ignoring her. If you look at her while chewing, you are displaying the mechanics of mastication, which is rude. You have to develop a rhythm. Look at her, listen to complaint. Look down, locate pastry. Cut blindly, fork to mouth. Look up, swallow. Nod sympathetically. It is a neurological workout. Your neck muscles begin to spasm. The sheer effort of keeping your head turned to the right creates a knot of tension at the base of your skull. You are developing dinner party torticollis. The volume ovent is treacherous. It is flaky pastry. As you bite into it, shards of crust explode. They land on your mustache. They land on your lap. One particularly rebellious flake lands on your shirt front, right on the starch. You cannot brush it off. Mrs. Blenkinsop is watching. You have to wait for a lull in the conversation to casually flick it away, praying it doesn't leave a grease mark. Historians still argue whether the turn of the table was intended to foster communal harmony by ensuring everyone spoke to everyone, or if it was simply a way for the hostess to ensure that no one was having too much fun with a single partner. You suspect it is a method of enforcing mediocrity. By forcing you to switch, the system ensures that no conversation ever becomes deep, meaningful, or interesting. It keeps the interaction at the level of polite surface tension. Mrs. Blenkinsop has moved on from her nephew's liver to the state of the servant class. This is the universal Victorian pastime, complaining about the help while being waited on hand and foot by them. They have no loyalty, she hisses, loud enough for the footman pouring her water to hear. I had a scullery maid who demanded Sunday afternoons off. Imagine. Shocking, you murmur, taking a bite of sweet bread. It tastes of organ meat and sherry. The texture is soft, almost spongy. It is nursery food, dressed up in French finery. You wonder how long this half of the meal will last. The roast is coming next. That is the main event. Surely the hostess will turn back then? Or are you stuck with Mrs. Blenkinsop for the duration of the beef? You glance jealously at Miss Featherstone to your left. She is speaking to the curate. They seem to be laughing. Actually laughing. You feel a surge of irrational hatred toward the curate. He has stolen your partner and left you with the turban of doom. The heat in the room is rising. The gasoliers are pumping out BTUs. The body heat of 20 people eating hot pastry is accumulating. The collar feels tighter. Mrs. Blenkinsop is consuming a lot of oxygen. She leans in closer to whisper a scandal about a neighbor. You smell her perfume. It is heavy ambergris and stale violets. It mixes with the smell of the sweetbreads. You feel a wave of mild nausea. And they say, she whispers, her eyes gleaming with the predatory delight of the gossip, that she was seen in a hackney carriage, alone. You feign a gasp. You are an actor in her play. You are the chorus. You realize that you are not a person to her. You are an ear. You are a receptacle for her complaints and her malice. If you were replaced by a wax dummy that nodded every 10 seconds, she probably wouldn't notice until the dessert course. The footman clears the entree plates. You have survived the pastry. You have survived the liver talk. But Mrs. Blenkinsop is not done. She is just getting warmed up. She fixes you with a steely gaze. "And what are your prospects, Mr. Your name?" she asks. This is the danger zone. She is probing your finances. She is assessing your eligibility for whatever unmarried nieces she keeps in her attic. You have to deflect. You have to be vague. "I am content," you say. Contentment, she sniffs, is usually a sign of a lack of ambition. She has skewered you. She has taken your polite deflection and turned it into a character flaw. You take a long drink of wine. It is the only defense you have left. The turn has locked you in a cage with a predator who eats self-esteem for dinner. And looking down the table, you see the hostess is deep in conversation, showing no sign of turning back. You are in for the long haul. The beef is coming, and you will have to eat it while explaining why you aren't rich yet. The entrees were merely the skirmish lines. Now the heavy artillery arrives. The doors to the servery swing open, and a new scent invades the room. It pushes aside the delicate notes of the sherry and the fish sauce, replacing them with something primal, heavy, and undeniably dead. It is the smell of roasted flesh. It is the scent of a kitchen that has been burning coal and tripping fat for 6 hours. The joints have arrived. In a service a la francaise dinner, the host would now be standing up, brandishing a carving knife like a warrior priest, hacking at a baron of beef or a saddle of mutton right there on the table. It was a violent, sweaty performance of feudal authority. But you are dining a la Russe. The violence has been outsourced. The servants bring the meat to the sideboard, carve it with surgical speed, and present the slices to you on silver platters. But even sliced, the scale of the consumption is staggering. You are presented with a slab of roast beef. It is not a modern, modest portion. It is a crimson tile of muscle, rimmed with a thick layer of yellow fat that quivers as the footman lowers the dish. Beside it, a Yorkshire pudding that has absorbed its own weight in tallow. You look at it. Your stomach, already confused by the soup, the fish, and the sweetbreads, sends a distress signal to your brain. No more, it pleads. We are at capacity. But social etiquette overrides biology. To refuse the main course is an insult to the host's provider status. It implies his cattle are inferior. You must take a slice. You must take the gravy. You must take the potatoes roasted in dripping. As you cut into the meat, you become acutely aware of the environment. The dining room is changed. When you entered an hour ago, it was pleasantly warm. Now it is a kill. The culprit hangs above your head. The gas chandelier, the gasolier, is a miracle of modern technology, bringing the brightness of day to the night. But it is also a furnace. Each jet of flame consumes oxygen and releases heat, carbon dioxide, and a faint sulfurous fume. There are perhaps 30 jets burning in this room. They are competing with you for the air. The room is hermetically sealed. The Victorians have a pathological fear of drafts, believing that a movement of cool air causes everything from the common cold to instant death. The heavy velvet curtains are drawn tight. The doors are shut. The fireplace is roaring, because a fire is cheerful, regardless of the ambient temperature. You are sitting in an airtight box that is slowly cooking you. This is the roast beef sauna. You feel the first bead of sweat form at your hairline. It is a cold, distinct droplet. It begins a slow, ticklish journey down your temple. You cannot wipe it away. To mop your brow at the dinner table is to admit that you are a biological entity capable of perspiration. It is a loss of composure. You pray it runs down your sideburn and drops onto your collar, rather than running down your nose. The heat interacts with your clothing. The wool of your tailcoat, which felt substantial in the carriage, now feels like a lead blanket. It traps your body heat against your skin. The flannel undergarments are itching with renewed vigor. But the worst betrayal is the starch. The collar, that fortress of linen around your neck, is reacting to the humidity. As you sweat, the starch begins to lose its structural integrity. It softens. It becomes the heavy artillery of the roast beef and the game birds has finally retreated to the kitchen. You sit in the aftermath, your stomach distended, your collar damp, your mind foggy with heat and red wine. You pray for a pause. You pray for a simple piece of fruit. But the Victorians do not believe in simplicity. They believe in architecture. The footmen descend again. They bear silver platters, but this time the food is not steaming. It is shivering. It is the course of the gros piece fra, the cold ornamental dish. It is aspic. You look at the serving dish presented to you. Rising from the silver surface is a trembling, translucent tower. It catches the light of the gasolier, refracting it through layers of amber and gold. It is beautiful in the way a jellyfish is beautiful, elegant, complex, and deeply threatening to human skin. Inside this suspension of savory glass, objects are trapped. You can see slices of hard-boiled egg, their yolks staring out like unblinking eyes. You see geometric shapes of truffle, black and stark. And buried deep in the center, like a prehistoric fly in amber, is a gray, indeterminate mass of protein. It might be foie gras. It might be tongue. It might be the leftover pheasant from yesterday, repurposed into a mausoleum of gelatin. You must take a slice. The serving spoon cuts into the structure. It makes a wet, sucking sound as it breaks the surface tension. The tower wobbles violently, a sympathetic vibration that unsettles your own stomach. You transfer a trembling wedge to your plate. It sits there, slumping slightly in the heat of the room, sweating a thin layer of meat juice. You are staring at a triumph of Victorian chemistry. To create this dish was a feat of industrial labor. Someone in the kitchen spent hours boiling down calves' feet, pigs' trotters, or fish bladders, isinglass, to extract the collagen. They clarified the broth with eggshells and crushed shells, straining it through flannel until it was as clear as glass. They poured it into a complex copper mold, layering the ingredients upside down, chilling it on blocks of expensive ice imported from Norway or America. It is not just food. It is a status symbol. It says, I can afford ice in a hot room. I can afford to turn a cow's foot into a jewel. But you are the one who has to eat the jewel. You pick up your fork. You do not need a knife. The structural integrity of the aspic is deceptive. It looks solid, but it yields instantly to pressure. You lift a piece to your mouth. It is cold, shockingly cold after the sauna of the previous course. It hits your tongue and begins to dissolve immediately. The sensation is repulsive. The human brain is wired to expect solids to remain solid until chewed. Aspic violates this contract. It starts as a firm, rubbery substance, but upon contact with body heat, it melts into a salty, meaty liquid. You are not eating. You are drinking a solid that has given up on existence. The flavor is intense. It is the essence of meat, concentrated and chilled. It tastes of animal glue, sherry, and salt. It coats your tongue in a film of protein that feels like lacquer. And then there is the texture of the inclusions. You bite into something soft to truffle, a mushroom. It is mushy, preserved in the airtight jelly. Then something hard to peppercorn. You are eating a biological sample jar. Historians still argue whether the Victorian obsession with encasing food in jelly was a desire for preservation or a psychological need to exert total control over nature, freezing organic chaos into a perfect geometric form. You suspect it is control. It is the same impulse that drives them to pin butterflies to boards and press flowers in books. They cannot stand the messy reality of a cooked bird. They must debone it, press it, and seal it in a pristine block of amber. You glance at Mrs. Blenkinsop. She is attacking her aspic with grim determination. The turban wobbles in time with the jelly on her fork. A very clear mold, she pronounces. My cook struggles with cloudiness. One must boil the feet vigorously. Vigorously, you agree, fighting the urge to gag. The mental image of the boiling feet is not helping. You look at the specimen on your plate. It is melting faster now. The heat of the room is defeating the Norwegian ice. The tower is collapsing into a puddle of brown broth. You have to eat it quickly, before it becomes soup. This is the race against the melt. You shovel the cold slime into your mouth. Swallow, swallow. You don't chew. Chewing just prolongs the texture. You treat it like a pill. The meat in the center is revealed. It is, you decide, a lark's tongue or perhaps a sweetbread. It is cold and gray. It tastes of iron. You swallow it whole. There is a cruelty to this course. It comes right when you are fullest, hitting you with rich, collagen-heavy density. It seals the roast beef into your stomach like a cap of concrete. You feel the waistband of your trousers straining against the hook. The starch of your shirt is now completely surrendered, folding against your desk. The savory ordeal has ended, but the table is not yet safe. Before the final assault can begin, a ritual cleansing must occur. The footmen descend with silver scoops and brushes. They sweep the tablecloth. This is crumbing. It is a moment of strange intimacy, where a servant leans over your shoulder to sweep away the debris of your gluttony, the breadcrumbs, the flakes of pastry, the crystallized drops of sauce. They are clearing the battlefield of the dead to make way for the decorative structures of the afterlife. The heavy, meat-scented air lingers, but now a new aroma begins to weave through it. Vanilla, rose water, burnt caramel. It is a cloying nursery scent that promises innocence but delivers agony. The dessert course, or the sweets, has arrived. The center of the table is transformed. The wilted flowers are pushed aside by towering edifices of sugar. There are pyramids of macaroons glued together with toffee. There are pieces Monte's architectural follies, made of spun sugar that look like crystalline cobwebs. There are jellies, again, but this time bright red and shaking with artificial fruit flavors. And there is ice cream, served in metal molds shaped like swans or melons. It looks like a fairy tale. It looks like a child's dream. But you are not a child. You are a middle-aged Victorian gentleman with the dental hygiene of a medieval peasant and the sugar intake of a modern addict. You pick up your dessert spoon and fork. They are smaller, golden, and dainty. You reach for a sugar plum or a piece of marzipan fruit. You bite down. The pain is instantaneous and blinding. It shoots from your molar directly into your brainstem, a lightning bolt of pure, white-hot agony. You freeze. Your eyes water. You have found a cavity. Or perhaps you have found an exposed nerve root, worn down by years of grit in the bread and acid in the wine. The sugar of this era is not the fine, powdery dust of the future. It is coarse. It is crystalline. It acts like gravel, grinding against the sensitive, eroded enamel of your teeth. Every chew is an act of abrasion. You look around the table. You are not alone in your suffering. If you observe closely, and you have nothing else to do but observe, you will see the sugar wince. It is a micro-expression. The colonel takes a bite of iced pudding. His eye twitches. His jaw locks for a fraction of a second. He swallows the ice cream whole to bypass the teeth, a maneuver that results in an immediate brain freeze, freezing his sinuses. Mrs. Blenkinsop is nibbling a macaroon with the caution of a bomb disposal technician. She is using her front teeth only, looking like a squirrel. She knows that her back teeth are a disaster zone of sensitive roots and loose fillings. This is the great secret of the Victorian smile. Behind the stiff upper lip lies a graveyard of calcium. Dentistry in your time is a form of torture that people pay for. The drill is a foot-pedaled nightmare that spins slowly and vibrates the entire skull. Anesthesia is a novelty, often consisting of a shot of brandy or a whiff of ether that makes you vomit. Most people simply wait until the tooth rots enough to be pulled out with pliers by a barber. As a result, the mouths around this table are filled with decay. You look at the young woman to your left, Miss Featherstone. She smiles at a joke from the curate. It is a tight, controlled smile. She does not show her teeth. This is not just modesty. It is concealment. Historians still argue whether the ubiquity of ladies' fans was primarily for cooling the face, or for hiding the blackened stumps of teeth from potential suitors during conversation. The sugar on the table masks the smell. That is its secondary purpose. Underneath the scent of vanilla and the heavy perfume of the guests, there is a faint underlying odor of rot. It is the breath of the tomb. It is the smell of periodontal disease, of abscesses draining slowly, of food trapped in gaps where teeth used to be. To combat this, everyone is sucking on cashews, small, silver-coated pills made of licorice, cashew nut, and musk, designed to perfume the breath. You have one in your pocket. You long to take it, but you must finish your pudding first. You are eating a Nestle Road pudding, a frozen mixture of chestnuts, cream, and candied fruit. It is delicious. It is also freezing cold and sticky. The candied fruit sticks to your molars. You have to pry it off with your tongue, risking dislodging a filling. The fillings themselves are a hazard. If you are wealthy, you have gold leaf pounded into the cavities. If you are less wealthy, you might have lead, or a mixture of mercury and silver called amalgam, that leaks toxic vapor into your system with every hot cup of tea. You are slowly poisoning yourself to plug the holes in your head. You watch the hostess. She is eating a meringue. The sugar dissolves on her tongue. She looks serene. But you know that last year she spent 3 weeks in the country for her health, which is code for having all her upper teeth removed and replaced with a vulcanite denture. Her teeth are perfect. They are too perfect. They are white, even, and slightly too large for her mouth. They click faintly when she speaks sibilance. You wonder about the origin of those teeth. They might be porcelain. Or, if they are older, they might be Waterloo teeth, real human teeth harvested from the corpses of souls. The door clicks shut behind the last trailing hem of silk. The sound is final, like the ceiling of a vault. For a heartbeat, there is silence. Then, a collective exhale sweeps around the table. It is the sound of 10 men simultaneously releasing their abdominal muscles. The atmosphere in the room undergoes an instant phase change. The tension of performing for the female gaze evaporates, replaced by a heavier, darker gravity. The posture of the men shifts. Spines curve. Elbows previously banned from the table under penalty of social death land heavily on the damask cloth. Legs stretch out under the table, boots colliding with chair legs. The host stands up and moves to the other end of the table, consolidating the survivors. You are beckoned to move closer. You drag your heavy mahogany chair across the carpet, scraping it into a tighter circle of masculinity. You are now in the exile. The footmen, who have been hovering like ghosts, now place the holy sacraments of this new religion on the table. Decanters of heavy-cut crystal filled with dark, viscous liquids and boxes of cedar containing cigars. "Port?" the colonel asks, his voice suddenly booming without the dampener of polite society. He does not wait for an answer. He pours himself a glass and slides the decanter to you. You know the rule. It is the most sacred law of the male dinner ritual. The port must pass to the left. It follows the sun. To pass it to the right is bad luck. To stop it is a crime. If you fail to pass it, someone will eventually ask, "Do you know the Bishop of Norwich?" A coded insult, meaning, "You are hoarding the wine. You fool." You pour. The liquid is purple-black, thick, and sweet. It is fortified wine, loaded with brandy and sugar. After the soup, the fish, the beef, the game, the aspic, and the pudding, your stomach views this arrival with absolute horror. It is like pouring syrup into a clogged drain. But you drink. You have to. It is the fuel of the conversation. And then, the smoke. The host opens the cigar box. These are Havanas, thick and dark. You take one. You clip the end with a small gold cutter attached to your watch chain. You strike a Vesta, a wax match on the underside of the table. The smell of sulfur flares, sharp and stinging, before being subsumed by the heavy, oily aroma of burning tobacco. Within minutes, the dining room, already hot, airtight, and smelling of roast meat, is filled with a blue-gray fog. This is the Victorian man cave, but without the ventilation. You are marinating in a toxic cloud. Your eyes begin to water. Your throat, already raw from the hot soup, constricts against the smoke. But you puff away. The cigar is a prop. It gives you something to do with your hands. It allows you to mask your expressions behind a screen of vapor. The conversation changes. Gone are the weather and the opera. The railways. A man with mutton chop whiskers declares, stabbing the air with his cigar. They are ruining the countryside. But the shares are rallying. Capital, another grunts. The talk turns to money. In the you cross the threshold, and the world softens. The harsh, masculine geometry of the dining room and the blue haze of the smoking room are replaced by a riot of texture. You have entered the drawing room, the domain of the feminine, and it is a velvet cage designed to suffocate you with comfort. The air here is different. It is hotter, if that is possible, but it is a perfumed heat. The smell of stale cigar smoke clinging to your coat instantly goes to war with the scent of potpourri, hothouse lily, and the lavender water dabbed behind 20 pairs of ears. The mixture is cloying. It smells like a funeral home disguised as a candy shop. The hostess looks up as the men file in. Her eyes flick to the clock, then to her husband, then to you. It is a quick inventory check. Are they drunk? Are they steady? How bad do they smell? You feel guilty. You feel like a schoolboy returning from a forbidden escapade. You are carrying the contagion of the real world, politics, money, war, into this sanctuary of embroidery and watercolor. You must now integrate. You cannot simply collapse onto a sofa. In fact, you cannot collapse anywhere. The Victorian drawing room is a testament to horror vécu, the fear of empty space. Every square inch of the room is occupied. The walls are covered in patterned paper, then covered again in paintings, mirrors, and sconces. The floor is layered with Persian rugs. The tables are groaning under the weight of bric-a-brac porcelain shepherdesses, glass domes containing stuffed hummingbirds, ivory fans, and silver boxes. This is not a room for living. It is an obstacle course. You navigate the furniture with the care of a bomb disposal technician. You are slightly unsteady from the port, Section 12, and your center of gravity is thrown off by your heavy meal, Section 9. If you stumble, you will not just fall. You will take down a priceless collection of mice and figurines. You find a chair. It is a balloon-backed chair, or perhaps a lady's slipper chair. It is an exquisite piece of walnut carving and velvet upholstery. It is also an instrument of torture. Victorian furniture is designed by moralists, not ergonomists. The back of the chair is perfectly vertical. The seat is hard and sprung with horsehair that has the give of a granite slab. It is designed to enforce upright posture. You cannot slouch. You cannot lean back. If you try to relax, you will slide off the slippery velvet. You sit. Your spine, already aching from the dining chair, protests. Your trousers, tight around the waist, cut into your digestion. You are sitting on a monument to rigidity. Historians still argue whether the stiffness of Victorian furniture was intended to promote alertness, or if it was simply a conspiracy by corset makers to ensure that no one ever felt comfortable enough to question their life choices. A footman approaches with a silver tray. Coffee. It is black, strong, and served in cups the size of thimbles. It is a stimulant. This is the last thing you need. Your heart is already palpitating from the heavy meal and the alcohol. But you must take it. It is the fuel required to survive the next hour. You balance the tiny cup on your knee. The handle is too small for your fingers. You are terrified of dropping it. The caffeine hits your system, fighting the depressant of the alcohol. You enter a state of tired wired. You are exhausted, but your eyes are pinned open. Then the entertainment begins. The hostess claps her hands lightly. "Miss Featherstone," she coos, "won't you favor us?" This is the dreaded summons to the pianoforte. Miss Featherstone demurs. "Oh, I couldn't possibly. I haven't practiced." "Please," the room murmurs. "Do. It is a scripted dance." She wants to play. She has brought her sheet music. It is rolled up in the hallway. She sits at the piano. It is a massive rosewood beast that dominates the corner. She adjusts her stool. She spreads her skirts. She takes a deep breath. She begins to play. It is a ballad, something sentimental about dying flowers, or lost loves, or children ascending to heaven. Her voice is adequate. It is thin and reedy, straining for the high notes. She plays with feeling, which means she slows down and speeds up arbitrarily, destroying the rhythm. You sit there, trapped in your balloon-backed chair. You cannot look away. You must perform the role of the rapt listener. You tilt your head. You tap your finger on your knee, but not too rhythmically, or it looks impatient. You cultivate an expression of soulful appreciation. Inside, you are screaming. The music drags on. Verse 1. Chorus. Verse 2. Chorus. Verse 3. How many verses can there be about a wilted rose? The room is silent, save for the piano and the wheezing of the colonel, who has fallen asleep in the corner. His chin is resting on his starched shirt front, and he is emitting a low, whistling snore. Everyone pretends not to hear it. To acknowledge the snore would be to acknowledge that the evening is boring, which is a social heresy. You envy him. You wish you could sleep. But Mrs. Blenkinsop is watching you. If you close your eyes, she will assume you are drunk. Miss Featherstone finishes with a flourish, a high trembling note that sounds suspiciously like a tea kettle boiling. You clap. Your gloves muffle the sound. "Bravo," you murmur. "Charming," she blushes. She retreats. But the danger is not over. "Mister, your name," the hostess says, turning her gaze upon you. Do you not sing? Panic freezes your blood. This is the ambush. In this era, everyone is expected to have a turn. You are expected to contribute to the domestic amusement. Alas, you lie, a throat affliction. The doctor has forbidden it. A pity, she says, clearly not believing you. You are spared, but only just. The evening settles into a conversational deadlock. The guests are arranged in a circle, like a wagon train defending against an attack. You are forced to make small talk again, but you have exhausted the weather. You have exhausted the roads. You have exhausted the opera. You are left with the silent gaze. You stare at the pattern in the rug. You count the tassels on the curtains. You calculate how much the chandelier weighs and what would happen if it fell. The heat is unbearable. The fireplace is still roaring. The coffee is making you sweat. You feel a droplet run down your back, between your shoulder blades. You can't scratch it. You can't move. You are a statue in a museum of boredom. You notice the women using their accessories. The fans are fluttering like agitated moths. Some are discreetly sniffing from small bottles vinaigrettes filled with smelling salts or vinegar sponges. They are medicating themselves against the fainting vapors induced by the corsets and the heat. You wish you had a vinaigrette. You wish you had a hammer. There is a sense of timelessness in the drawing room. The clock on the mantelpiece is ticking, but the hands don't seem to move. It is 10:15. It feels like 10:15 next year. You look at the legs of the furniture. They are curved, ornate, and often covered with little fabric skirts to hide their nakedness. The Victorians are so repressed, they cannot even look at a table leg without feeling a flicker of shame. You shift your weight. Your foot has gone to sleep. Pins and needles shoot up your calf. You try to wiggle your toes, but the patent leather boots are unforgiving. Section 2. You are trapped in a cycle of physical misery. The foot pain, the indigestion, the headache, the sweat. And overlaying it all is the veneer of perfect, polite stillness. You realize that this room is the ultimate expression of the Victorian soul. It is crowded, expensive, uncomfortable, and desperately concerned with appearances. It is a velvet cage where you are both the exhibit and the prisoner. Another cup? The footman whispers. No, you say. Thank you. You cannot take more liquid. Your bladder is a ticking time bomb, and to leave the room now would be to draw attention to your biological functions. You must hold it. You must endure. You wait for the magic words. You wait for the highest-ranking lady to signal that she is tired. Until the Duchess yawns, you are a hostage. The drawing room is quiet now, save for the ticking clock and the low murmur of tired conversation. But inside your own body, a war has broken out. You are experiencing the inevitable consequence of Victorian excess, the revolt of the viscera. It starts as a pressure, a distinct, expanding sensation in the upper quadrant of your abdomen. You have consumed, in the space of 3 hours, hot salted water, buttery fish sauce, organ meats, roast beef fat, game bird, meat jelly, sugar, ice cream, pork, sherry, and coffee. You have effectively turned your stomach into a chemistry set, mixing acids, fats, sugars, and alcohols that were never meant to coexist in such quantities. Your digestive system is now trying to process a biological disaster, and it is doing so while encased in a garment that allows for zero expansion. This is the waistband crisis. When you dressed 6 hours ago, Section 2, your trousers were snug. They were tailored to a standing man with an empty stomach. Now, you are a sitting man with a stomach that is distended by approximately 3 inches. The laws of physics are clashing with the laws of tailoring. The hook and eye closure at the top of your trousers is the only thing holding the line. You can feel the metal straining. It is digging into your flesh, creating a focal point of sharp, pinching pain. If it pops, the sound will be audible. It will ping against the underside of the table, if you are still dining, or simply snap loudly in the quiet drawing room. You subtly try to shift your position to relieve the pressure. You lean forward slightly. Big mistake. Leaning forward compresses the abdomen further, forcing the contents of your stomach upward. You feel a sudden, burning tide rise in your esophagus. Heartburn, or as the medical men call it, dyspepsia. It is a searing heat, hotter than the soup ever was. It sits right behind your sternum, a glowing ember of regret. You swallow hard, trying to push the acid back down. It tastes of bile and nesselrode pudding. You reach for your water glass, but there is no water, only the empty coffee cup. You are dehydrated, salt-loaded, and burning from the inside out. Then comes the sound, gurgle. It is low, guttural, and unmistakable. It is the sound of a swamp draining. It is borborygmi, the acoustic evidence of peristalsis. In a noisy room, it would be unnoticed. In the hushed reverence of the Victorian drawing room, it sounds like a distant thunderstorm. Mrs. Blenkinsop freezes. She stops fanning herself. She does not look at you, which is the polite way of acknowledging that she heard your internal organs screaming. You turn red, not the flush of the port, but the crimson of shame. You cough loudly to cover the echo. Ahem. The cough shakes your diaphragm, causing a sharp stab of pain in your distended stomach. You are trapped in a biological feedback loop. You need to belch. The gas pressure is building. A good, honest belch would provide immense relief. It would vent the steam from the boiler, but you cannot belch. To belch in mixed company is social suicide. It is the mark of the beast. It is something peasants do in taverns. A gentleman suppresses, so you swallow the air. You force the gas back down. This only increases the pressure, distending the stomach further, tightening the waistband, increasing the pain. You are inflating yourself like a balloon inside a steel cage. You look at the women. They are suffering too. Their corsets are far more restrictive than your braces. You see it in their breathing. They are taking shallow, sip-like breaths, using only the very top of their lungs. Their chests rise and fall rapidly, a flutter of silk and lace. Below the rib cage, they are encased in whalebone armor that is relentlessly crushing their digestion. Historians still argue whether the fainting couch was a piece of furniture designed for romance, or simply a medical necessity for women who passed out from digesting roast beef while laced into an 18-inch waist. You envy the fainting couch. You would love to faint, to just slide off this balloon-backed chair and lie horizontal on the rug would be paradise. The pain shifts lower. The colonic rebellion begins. The rich foods, the cream, the fat, the spicers are moving through your system with alarming speed. You feel a cramp, a sharp, twisting knot in your intestines. It makes you sweat. A cold, clammy sheen breaks out on your forehead. You clench your gluteal muscles. You are now holding on for dear life. You are fighting a war on two fronts. The acid rising from above and the pressure building from below. You engage in the distraction. You try to focus intensely on the pattern of the wallpaper. You count the roses. 1, 2, 3. If you concentrate on the roses, you won't think about the fact that you might explode. Are you quite well, mister? Your name? Mrs. Blenkinsop asks. She is watching you with the clinical detachment of a vulture. You look pale. A touch of the headache. You lie. The heat. You should take a powder, she advises. Gregory's powder. Excellent for the bile. You nod. If she offered you a powder right now, you would snort it. You realize that this indigestion is not an accident. It is a feature of the lifestyle. This is why gout is the rich man's disease. This is why there are so many advertisements for liver pills and stomach bitters in the newspapers. The entire upper class is walking around in a state of chronic, self-inflicted gastrointestinal distress. They are poisoning themselves with luxury. You think about the peasant eating his turnip stew. He is hungry, yes, but his waistband is loose. His stomach is calm. He will sleep tonight. You will spend the night propped up on 3 pillows, drinking bicarbonate of soda and praying for death. The clock chimes the half hour. 10:30. Surely it is time. The agony creates a strange clarity. You realize that your body is not a temple. It is a trash can. You have filled it with expensive garbage because society told you to. You have sacrificed your comfort, your health, and your dignity for the sake of being seen eating a bird you didn't catch. A sharp pain stabs you under the ribs. Gas. It feels like a spear. You wince visibly. A sudden twinge, you mutter, pressing a hand to your waistcoat. The damp, the colonel says sympathetically, gets in the joints. Yes, you agree. The joints. You are lying to the end. Finally, the Duchess stirs. She shifts in her chair. She catches the eye of the hostess. My dear, she says, it has been a delightful evening. But the carriage horses, they get so restless in the fog. It is the code, the signal of release. The room exhales. The tension breaks. The torture is over. You stand up. The movement is agonizing. As you straighten your body, your waistband bites deep into your flesh. Your stomach creates a new, sickening sensation of gravity. You feel heavy. You feel like you are carrying a cannonball in your gut. But you are standing. You are moving toward the door. You are escaping the velvet cage. You bow to Mrs. Blenkinsop. A pleasure, you lie. Do take care of that headache, she says. You turn away. You walk toward the hallway. Your gait is stiff, careful. You are walking like a man made of glass. One false step, one sudden jolt, and the internal dam might break. You reach the hall. The air is cooler here. It helps the nausea slightly. You wait for your coat. The footman brings it. It feels heavier than before. You drape it over your shoulders. You cannot button it. You physically cannot bring the two sides together over your distended stomach. You will have to wear it open, exposing your shame to the night. You step toward the door. The anatomy of indigestion is complete. You are a full, aching, burning monument to excess. And now, the final journey begins. The transition from the house to the street is a shock to the system. A violent decompression from the high-pressure environment of the dinner party. You stand in the hallway one last time. The air here is merely cool. Outside, it is a freezing void. The footman drapes your heavy wool coat over your shoulders. You do not attempt to fasten it. Your abdomen is currently a sovereign state that refuses to recognize the authority of buttons. You clutch the lapels together with a gloved hand, holding yourself together like a poorly packed parcel. There is one final toll to pay before you can escape. The servants are lined up. The butler stands nearest the door, his face a mask of professional indifference that barely conceals his expectation. You must tip them. These are the veils, the unofficial tax of social life. If you do not press a coin into the butler's hand, your hat might be misplaced next time. If you do not tip the footman, your coat might acquire a mysterious stain. You fumble in your waistcoat pocket. Your fingers are stiff, numb from the cold and the lack of circulation. You locate the coins. You slide a shilling into the butler's palm. "Good night, sir," he says. His voice is devoid of warmth. He weighs the coin instantly, assessing your generosity. You have passed, but barely. The door opens. The London night hits you like a wet sack. The fog has thickened during the hours of your confinement. It is a pea souper, a yellow-gray smog composed of river mist and the smoke from a million coal fires. It catches in your throat, tasting of sulfur and soot. It makes your eyes sting, but it is fresh air. Or at least, it is air that hasn't been breathed by Mrs. Blenkinsop. You gulp it down and immediately regret it as the cold air hits your overheated lungs, triggering a coughing fit that rattles your distended stomach. You descend the steps. The pavement is slick. A linked man, a boy with a torch, is waiting to guide you to your carriage. He is a spectral figure in the fog, his torch a ragged smear of orange light. You toss him a penny. You climb into your carriage. This is a difficult maneuver. You have to lift your leg high to reach the step, a motion that compresses your gut. You groan audibly. You haul yourself into the dark, musty interior of the cab. You collapse onto the leather seat. It is cold. The leather sucks the remaining heat from your body through your trousers. But you don't care. You are sitting down. And crucially, you are alone. The door slams shut. The driver cracks his whip. The carriage lurches forward. Now begins the agony of the motion. Victorian carriages are suspended on leaf springs. They do not glide. They bounce. They sway. They shudder. As the iron-rimmed wheels hit the cobblestones, the vibration travels up through the frame, through the seat, and directly into your digestive tract. Your stomach, filled with the volatile mixture of soup, beef, and pork, sloshes with every pothole. You feel green. You grip the strap by the window, closing your eyes, fighting the rising nausea. You are being churned like butter. In the privacy of the dark cab, you commit the ultimate social sin. You unbutton your trousers. The relief is orgasmic. The waistband pops open, and your stomach expands into the void, grateful for the space. You undo the bottom button of your waistcoat. You loosen your cravat. You pull the studs out of your collar, letting the starched linen flap loose. You are decomposing. The gentleman is falling apart. You sit there, disheveled, panting, smelling of stale smoke and indigestion, bouncing through the fog. You look out the window. You can see nothing but the swirling yellow mist. You could be anywhere. You could be in hell. In a way, you are. The adrenaline of the performance has faded, leaving behind a crushing, hollow fatigue. It is a specific kind of exhaustion, social fatigue. It is the tiredness that comes from 3 hours of smiling when you wanted to scream, of listening when you wanted to sleep, of eating when you wanted to stop. Your mind begins the post-mortem. You replay the evening. Did you offend Mrs. Blenkinsop? Did you ignore the hostess? Did you have spinach in your teeth during the dessert course? The anxiety that you held at bay with wine now returns with a vengeance. You cringe at a memory of a joke that didn't land. You worry about the fishbone you hid on your plate. And then the darker question arises. Why? Why did you do this? You spent money you don't really have on gloves that are now ruined. You spent an evening you will never get back talking to people you don't like. You ate food that is actively hurting you. And for what? To maintain a position in a society that judges you based on the whiteness of your shirt and the dryness of your wit? To be invited back to do it again? That is the horror. The reward for being a good guest is another invitation. You realize that your life is just a series of these carriage rides, connecting dots of misery on a calendar. Next week is the dinner at the Harrisons. The week after, the ball at the Assembly Rooms. It is a treadmill of obligation. You are running on it, sweating and breathless, but you aren't going anywhere. You are just wearing out the machine. The carriage hits a particularly deep rut. You are thrown against the side of the cab. Your head bangs against the wood. Steady on. You yell at the driver, though he cannot hear you. You rub your head. You feel a tear leak from your eye. It's not sadness, exactly. It's a physical reaction to the pain, the cold, and the futility. You are a biological organism trapped in a sociological experiment, and the experiment is failing. Finally, the carriage slows. You recognize your street. It is dark. The houses are shut up tight, black eyes staring out at the fog. The cab stops. You have to reassemble yourself. You cannot walk past your own housekeeper with your trousers undone. You suck in your stomach a feat of heroic willpower and refasten the hook. You button the waistcoat. You fix the collar. The mask goes back on. You pay the driver. You fumble with the key to your front door. It sticks in the lock. You curse softly. The first honest sound you've made all night. The door opens. Your hallway is silent. A single gas jet has been left burning low for you. Your valet, or perhaps just a sleepy housemaid, appears from the shadows to take your coat. They look tired. They have been waiting for you to come home so they can go to sleep. You are the oppressor now. "Good evening, sir," they murmur. "Good evening," you croak. You climb the stairs to your bedroom. The house is cold. The fire in your room has died down to ash. You stand in the middle of the room and begin the final divestment. You strip off the coat, the waistcoat, the torture device shirt. You look at the shirt in the dim light. The front is creased and stained with a single drop of brown gravy, the mark of the volume au vent. The color is a limp rag. You peel off the trousers. You see the red marks on your waist, where the fabric bit into your skin. You are branded by your clothing. You wash your face in the basin. The water is freezing. It shocks you, scrubbing away the grease of the dinner, the smoke of the cigars, the powder of the drawing room. You look in the mirror. You look older than you did at 6 p.m. Your eyes are bloodshot. Your skin is gray. You put on your nightshirt. It is soft flannel. It is loose. It is the most beautiful thing you own. You climb into bed. The sheets are cold, crying out for a warming pan that isn't there. You curl up, pulling the knees to your chest to relieve the pressure in your stomach. You stare at the ceiling. The darkness is total now, but your mind won't stop. It drifts to the mantelpiece downstairs. You know what is waiting there. The Morning Post will bring new cards. Thick, cream-colored cards. Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so request the pleasure. You close your eyes. You try to block it out. You have survived the trial. You have paid the fine. You have served your time. But you know, with the certainty of the damned, that the court is always in session, and you have a life sentence